So we're going to graph these, and what we're going to learn today, graph those 3 points. Haley, will you do me a favor and just hold your paper up in the air? I hope Haley's got it graphed right. Does everybody's triangle sort of look like that?
Yes.
If you turned yours sideways, you should be able to figure that out, right? So what's that tell us?
I did the points right.
Apparently not. So we need to go back and figure it out. So you're going to follow along, erase that. Well, hold off, and we're going to graph them together, and you go through and graph it. So if you didn't get the same thing Haley got, should be paying attention right now. Notice, when we go to take this test over this chapter here real soon, and it's not going to be an easy test, and I'm to the point of the year that I had a bunch of them in first block, and another teacher was in here, and she's going, is that all they do all year long is nothing? I'm to the point, Kyle, you think I care if you do nothing from here on out? Who's that on? That's on you guys. I'm done babysitting. So you got to start, if you want to do something, you want to learn, put in the effort. I know Tyler, he asks me questions all the time. I get upset with him. Say, quit asking me questions, Tyler. I don't want to know. Just leave me alone. That's what I say all the time, right? Don't lie. I'll help you anytime I can help you. Anytime you need help, I'll help you. But if you don't want to put in the effort, I'm not going to beg you anymore. Did you hear all that? How do I graph negative 12, 4? Left 12, up 4. Hopefully I drew my graph over far enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. What am I going to label that point?
A.
Good. How do I graph 0, 4? Left to right 0, up 4. What do I label that point?
B.
Negative 6, 10. How do I graph that?
6, up 10.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No today. Do I seem like I'm in a real good mood? Not really. So please, so that I don't have to be a jerk towards anybody, be focused today. Draw that triangle. No chatter and stuff while I'm up here trying to show you this stuff. Did you figure it out, Mackenzie?
Yeah.
Everybody,
Stuff that's always again.
everybody else get that? Everybody has that triangle? Brandon, you got that triangle way back here? You now show it to me. All you had to do is say yes, and I believe you.
Like this.
Next thing we're going to do is we're going to find the midpoint of each side. I'm going to put these coordinates up here, negative 12, 4, so I don't have to keep trying to look back down here because it's hard to see. B is 0, 4. C is, you might want to do the same thing on your paper there. C is negative 6, 10. How can I find the midpoint of these sides? Use the midpoint formula. So we're going to use the midpoint formula. I'm going to show you how to use the midpoint formula, and then you're going to do the other two. All right? So follow along. Make sure you have your calculators out if you need them, so that you can do it. Pick me a segment.
C.
That's a point. AC. So if I have segment AC, I'm going to use the midpoint formula. Midpoint formula is right here. And all I'm going to do, every time the midpoint formula looks like this, it starts off looking like that. You're going to put the x coordinates here, the y coordinates there. So if I'm looking at A and C, what are the x coordinates? Negative 12, negative 6. Does everybody see that? That's it. If it helps you, put XY, 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 if that helps you. So you don't forget. So the x coordinates, negative 12, negative 6. I would be writing this down right there on the paper somewhere. It doesn't matter where. You can write it on the graph part. That's That triangle that we drew on that graph, that's all that's gonna be on there, other than all this other stuff that you're gonna write on there to figure out the midpoints and stuff. For the y coordinates, what are the y coordinates for A and C? We plug in 4 there, 10 there. Then we do the math. You got your calculator, and you want to use your calculator to do the math, that's fine. Just make sure it's not telling you the wrong answer. Use your brain a little bit too. What's negative 12 plus negative 6? Negative 18. So we got negative 18 divided by 2. What's 4 plus 10? 14 divided by 2. Slow down for a second, give them all a second to make sure everybody's set. Now, probably a lot of you are even going to do this step. You going to write that down normally? Probably not. You're probably going to go ahead and do the addition here, then the division, and write down the answer, right? That's normally what I do too. Figured I'd write it out this time just so everybody can see it. Now let's do it. What's negative 18 divided by 2? Negative 9. What's 14 divided by 2? What's that telling us? That's the midpoint of what segment? AC. So the midpoint of AC should be this. So if I graph that point, I should be right in the middle of segment AC. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to the left and up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do the same thing on yours. Does that look like about the midpoint? What's that? First of all, give me a letter so that we can label that.
D.
D. So label it D on your paper there. What's that tell us? Tell me something in that picture. If D's a midpoint, tell me something in that picture that we now know.
AC/DC?
Say it again.
Segment AD is congruent to DC.
Kinsey wonders why I get annoyed. So those two segments have to be congruent, right? We know that. What I want you to do, what are the other two sides of the triangles? Give me one of them. AB and C what? CB. Take a minute or two, I want you to find the midpoints. And I'm going to ask you what they are. Doing the same thing we just did. Find the midpoints of those two segments. Segment AB, and segment CB. Find the midpoints using the formula. Give you a couple minutes to do it. Plug in your X's, plug in your Y's. Now let's wait on the letters because that way we can be uniform and we can all be together. Caleb, you found the coordinates of all those already? Are you lying to me? If I walk up there, am I going to find out that you have? Yeah. And when I walk up there and if I find out that you haven't, guess what I'm going to do with all these flashcards? Break them. Probably not break them because they're not glass or anything, but right idea. It's pretty quick here. Maybe I should have tried that a long time because stick him somewhere where he can't sit and just talk all the time. Go fast. Am I stuck? Don't be afraid. You know I'm a smart aleck a lot of the time, Tyler. If you ask me a question, usually I'm not right. So I don't usually say, Jacob, you moron, what's wrong with you? You know how to do that. That's for your folks to do. That's not for me to ever do that to you, Thor? They just shake their head a lot and sigh. Huh?
They'll just get annoyed if it goes off.
Just knock it off and like wave you away or something.
Yeah.
Did you find them all, Mackenzie?
No, I'm confused with AB. Because those are the coins I get, but it can't be midpoint.
So did you plug it in like this?
Yeah, and I got the same thing.
Did you write it down?
No.
Write it down right there on your paper somewhere. What goes here, Mackenzie?
Negative 12.
Negative 12,
0.
0. Right?
I already have that down over here. See? Negative 12, 0.
No, I can't see that. Write it down just like I got it right here. Negative 12 plus 0. This is why you're confused. Negative 12 plus 0. Take the pen. Mr. A got people like this in his class, Jacob, that first block class.
Yeah, everybody just sleeps.
Everybody just sleeps. He doesn't care at all, does he? He said, if you want to sleep, sleep. He said one of them got annoyed today, didn't they? Did you guys have a test today? Kenzie, did you write it down?
Yeah.
I'm going to take everything else off your desk.
Just write down
Pencil.
12 plus
I
0.
already did that. I told you guys, I already did that.
The way I have it written right here.
Yes. And
What's
I
our
said
y
I did
coordinates?
The same thing. I already did that.
What's our y coordinates?
4 and 4.
4 and 4. So you wrote 4 plus 4
Yes.
divided by 2.
Yes.
Don't make me walk over there and see that you didn't do it.
I did.
All right? Now we add those two. What's negative 12 plus 0?
It's still the same thing.
What is it?
Negative 12.
Negative 12. Negative 12 divided by 2?
Just negatives.
Yeah.
Is that what you got the first time?
Yes.
4 plus 4?
Is 8.
8 divided by 2?
Is 4.
Is that what anybody else got?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we graph that, Mackenzie was saying that she didn't think she was right. If we graph that, where should it end up at? Right in the middle of what segment? So we go negative 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that where it ends up at?
Dang it. I messed up the Y again.
So make sure X, left or right, Y, up or down. Somebody give me a letter for that one. Say it again. You guys are so creative.
EA Sports. Negative
Anybody find the midpoint of segment CB? What did you get? Negative 3, 7. Are we in agreement there?
Yeah.
So if I graph that, negative 3, I'm hoping you guys aren't wrong. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Z.
Call it Z.
Z.
So we have those 3 midpoints. Should have that on your paper now, those 3 midpoints. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to find the length of each side of the triangle. Forget the midpoints are even there. We're going to find the lengths of all 3 sides. Anybody tell me how you can find the length of the side of those triangles?
The distance formula.
Wow, that's hard to believe, isn't it? Use the distance formula to find the distance. Use the midpoint formula to find the midpoints. So the distance formula, I'm going to have to show you how to do the first one, then you're going to do the other 2. Unlike this, unlike the midpoint formula, can you do the distance formula in your head without using the calculator? Probably not. Square roots, a little tougher to do in your head, right? So you need that calculator out. If you don't have one, then grab your neighbors when they get done with it. Pick me a segment. AB. So I'm going to do AB. We're going to find the length of segment AB. We're going to plug into this formula right here. Every time it's going to look like this again. If you're plugging this into your calculator, you're going to plug it into your calculator, but you're going to put in an extra parenthesis here, and an extra parenthesis there. Unless your calculator already puts that one in for you, then all you got to do is put in that last one. Put in a double one there at the end. Does that make sense to everybody? So for segment, what'd you guys pick? A, B. What are the x coordinates for A and B? -12, 0. What are the y coordinates? 4 and 4. Now again, if you plug this into your calculator, I'm going to go through the process of plugging this into your calculator. So if you listen right now and follow along, you plug in, you'll hit the buttons just like I'm telling you. First thing, I think on all the calculators, well, not all of them, but a lot of them, you got to hit second, then the square root button, right? If it pulls up this parenthesis for you, then don't put in a second parenthesis there. But then you still are going to have to put in another parenthesis. So you should have two parentheses here at the beginning. -12 minus 0, close the parenthesis. Then your calculator's probably got this button on it somewhere. Little x squared button. Just hit that button and it'll put the squared on there. Plus, parenthesis, 4 minus 4, parenthesis, hit the little x squared button again.
What?
Then close the parenthesis. They give you some crazy answer.
No, give me that there.
So let's go, we'll go back over, so try it again here.
Yeah, I got.
Close the parenthesis. Got that? Got 12?
Yes.
So some of you got 12. Let's go back and try it. Those of you who didn't get it, let's try it again. Again, I'm going to tell you the exact buttons to push. Get the square root up. If you already have a parenthesis there, then you don't need to put a second one in, or well, you do need to put a second one in. All right? So you should have two of them right here. So if you already have a parenthesis, then just put another one. If you don't have a parenthesis, then you got to put 2 in right there. Does that make sense? -12. If it came up error, what might have happened is you might have put a minus in instead of a negative, because it doesn't understand that.
I didn't know that.
So -12, then a minus sign, not a negative sign this time, a minus sign, 0. Close the parenthesis.
Yeah, I get 12.
Alright, I'm good.
Squared.
Just because I didn't put the second parenthesis.
Same.
So the length of this segment right here, from here to here, from A to B is 12. Length of that segment is 12. I'm doing all this, and it's not doing any good because I'm recording it all and you can't see none of it on the recording, so I'm going to have to go back and redo it. So while I'm doing that, what are the other two sides? AC and CB. I want you to find the length of AC and the length of CB by using that same formula. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. You can do that while I'm fixing all my mess up here. Somebody help me out. What was the midpoint of segment AC?
9, -9,
9, -7?
-9,
-9, 7?
Yeah.
Thank you. So find those two. Hopefully that'll give me time to fix what I didn't do correctly. All right, you stupid. Ignore me if I'm talking because I'm probably going to be explaining this video. Anybody get segment AC?
Yeah.
What'd you get?
8.4. 8.5.
It's 5.
8.4, 8.5,
Yes.
somewhere close to that? We'll go with 8.4, close enough. Anybody get segment CB? So what's that tell us about this triangle? It's an isosceles triangle. Is it equilateral?
No, no, it's not the same.
Not all the sides are the same. So it's isosceles triangle. Didn't ask us anything about that, but
It looks
something
like
that we
an
should know.
equilateral, doesn't it?
I don't know, does it?
No.
Kind of.
How long's that bottom side,
You
Mackenzie?
can tell the base side.
No, like if you didn't know the measurements, it was if someone would ask you just like basically look, it could look like an equilateral, and if you didn't have the measurements.
The base still looks long.
I don't know, it looks longer to me. Maybe your eyes don't work from left to right.
I know I have a lazy eye and astigmatism.
I'm just kidding, Mackenzie, we don't need to know all that. Once we know that, next thing I want you to do, I want you to connect two of the midpoints. So pick me two of the midpoints that we found.
Z and E.
Z and E, so we're going to connect them. So draw this little segment. Let's write this in because I forgot to do it. What was the coordinates of point D over here? Negative 9, 7. If you could read that, what was the coordinates of E? Negative 6, 4. Coordinates of Z? Negative 3, 7. Now we have all these other coordinates down here. I'm going to write them in up here too, just so I can quit looking back down there. Negative 6, 10, is that right? What's that? 0, 4. And A over here was negative 12, 4. Find the length of segment EZ right there. Find the length of segment EZ. How are we going to do that? Distance formula again. Don't watch up here because I'm going to do it up here. I want you to do it on your paper there. We're trying to cheat off me. I see your eyes looking up here at mine. See how close I can get here doing the square root in my head. Jacob said he could do the square root in his head, but I've never been able to do it very well. Anybody else get what I got? 4.2?
I got 5.2.
I got 11.4.
So let's go back. Did I plug in my x's right? Negative 6 and negative 3.
Yes.
What?
7 and 4, is that my y's?
Yes.
So I plug those two in. If you do it out longhand, if you're having trouble plugging it all into the calculator is one thing, then you might want to start doing it out step by step like I do it so that you don't get confused. Here I changed the signs, made them plus. What's negative 6 plus a positive 3? Negative 3, 7 minus 4, 3. What's negative 3 squared?
9.
Positive 9. What's 3 squared? 9. 9 plus 9? 18. Square root of 18, what is that? 4.2, is that right? Any of you see where you messed up at?
Yeah.
If you messed up,
I got 11.4, but that's because I switched. I made it segment ZE instead of EZ.
that doesn't matter.
The only thing I did was switch
Well,
the four.
well, when I did it on the calculator, it was 11.4.
Right, if you switch these two around, Brandon's saying that he switched these two around, does that matter? No, it's still gonna give you the same answer.
No, like I could completely switch. Like here, look at the calculator. This is what I did.
It shouldn't make any difference. I'm telling you, it shouldn't matter.
Well,
I
I still
could,
got 11.4.
I could switch a whole bunch of these numbers around and it still won't matter.
Well, then what did I do wrong? Because I typed it in right.
Right there. What'd you put in there?
Dang it.
So this segment right here is 4.2. This is what we're going to cover today. What's that tell you? Anybody notice anything?
Half the length of
It's half the length of what?
the, just two sides.
The side over there in the AC.
Oh,
And the other one, but that's just because this happens to be isosceles. So,
okay.
so this is half the length of that right there. Anything else that you can tell me about those two that I've shaded in darker? They're parallel to each other. All right? This is a special segment in geometry, and we're going to talk about it today. If we connect these two midpoints, it forms that special segment, and you'll always know that that special segment is half as long as that side over there, that third side of the triangle. And it's also parallel to that third side. If it's parallel, what's this called? Think back to our parallel lines. Starts with a T.
That's
Transversal.
transversal. Yeah, transversal.
What can you tell me about these two angles right here? The roommates.
Supplementary.
They're supplementary to each other. These two angles right here have to add up to 180 every time. What can you tell me about these two angles down here? They got to add up to 180. They're the roommates. All right? So if we know those are parallel, we know that's half of that. Now let's do this. Connect D to Z. Because Mackenzie had so much trouble plugging that into her calculator, we're going to help her out. How long is segment AB? 12. Do we really have to go through that whole distance formula to find the length of this segment DZ? If this whole thing down here is 12, how long is that? It's half of that side. Now, Melanie can use this. Now it's this side over here that we're dealing with, right? How long was that side? So how long is this part right here, that segment? 4.2.
What if we did round it up to 8.5
And then it'd be 4.25 when you took half of it.
Do you notice it?
What do you think's true about all four of those triangles?
5. There's 5 triangles.
They're all congruent. All four of those triangles are congruent, right? So all four of those triangles are congruent to each other. So if I told you the perimeter, if I found the perimeter of this triangle right here, which I can now do, perimeter of that triangle right there is 14, that's an equal sign, 14.4. What's the perimeter of this triangle? How about this one? So on, all the way through. All right? So that's all stuff you know. Flip your paper over. Flip your paper over. Grab that triangle. Graph this triangle. Mackenzie's going to make sure she's doing the X's and the Y's correctly this time. Graph that triangle. And then the next thing you're going to do, you could go ahead and do it while you're right after you graph it, is find the midpoint of each side. So you're going to use that midpoint formula to find the midpoint of each side. I'll give you a minute or two before I flip the slide. Never know. No. graphed the integral.
Yeah, I did.
Yep, I did the same thing when I graphed it first block. Yeah, I had the other one right away. I did the exact same thing. That's how I do it.
Alright.
I'm not sure. Is that what anybody else got? Brandon's asking if this was right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't erase that, might be right.
So you definitely,
Oh, really?
well, yeah, yours isn't. Okay, I might be wrong, so if I don't listen to you.
I think Cameron did the same thing George did.
I'm pretty sure I'm right. Yeah, right.
That was a lot of
What did you do wrong?
Is this it?
Mine wasn't really straight, but then you did that first. That's what you did.
A lot of people misgraphing this. I did the same thing the first time I graphed it.
I did it right.
Guess what they're doing?
What?
Going right 3 and then up 3 instead of down 3. I did the same thing.
That's right.
I don't know. Hold it up so they can see it, Mackenzie. I haven't graphed it yet.
Yes,
Mackenzie,
yes.
that is 100% correct. I thought.
Hey, I think Lady Luck smiled at me for once.
So I'm going to graph mine real quick. While I'm graphing it, go ahead and find the midpoints. Use the midpoint formula so you can tell me the midpoints of the 3 sides. That's all right. We're big boys and girls now. We can handle decimals. Don't even act like that, Mackenzie. Are you doing anything, or you just sitting there and waiting for me to get the answers?
I already got the answer.
So you got all 3 midpoints?
I only got one. You said I wanted to do that one.
No, I did not. I said do all 3.
Alright, then.
work in here, you don't understand midpoint formula and distance formula, you don't understand midpoint formula and distance formula, and you're not putting the work in right now, it's your own ignorance. Just copying down my answers, great. When we take the test here in a few days, you can't see my answers, you're out of luck. That'll be the new name if you're gonna start working. You hear me? I'll just call you MJ. Anybody get the answers that I got?
Yeah.
So 4, 3.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1, 2, 3.5. Should be somewhere about in there. Our midpoint's always gonna fall right on the crossings like we'd like them to. 8.5, 8.5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Go out a half, then you go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. So that one's gonna fall right in the middle of that box right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5, up 2, 1, 2. Somewhere about in there. All three of those look like they're midpoints of those three sides. Somebody give me a letter for this one. P, Q, pick me one side of the triangle. TN. Find the length of segment TN. Use the distance formula. Find the length of segment TN. Don't cheat off my work up here. Yes, here. Let's see. I figured this out once before. So you go to mode, go down. There's this classic and matte print. We want classic. And so for whatever reason, they may matte print the default. So every time it shuts off, it ends. And then go back. I'm sorry. Do you know how to go back up? Now, Thor, something you could do do to, you can't really count because it's not horizontal or vertical. But if you're not sure if your answer's somewhere close, we could do something like this. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it should be somewhere around that.
Squares where they would match up.
Right. It should be somewhere close to that. And if you get an answer that's somewhat close to that, then we're probably pretty close. So if you would have gotten something like 22, then we figure something's wrong. If we get something like 5, we figure something's wrong.
Yeah, something that's far off.
Now I'm not sure if mine's right or not because I did it in my head. Anybody else get something about like this?
I got
13.2. I just got 13.
13.2. You got 13 exactly.
I got 13.15.
13.15. So my 13.2 is pretty close.
Yeah, I got 1.
How'd you get 13 exact?
I don't know what it came out as.
What's your? Show me your front of your calculator. So you got one that doesn't go across, right? So you have to write it out like this first, right? So that you can. What was 5 minus 3? I think this is what you did. You tried to plug it into your calculator, and this part got left off. You thought you stuck it in there, but your calculator didn't understand. And I almost bet, well, it wouldn't have worked anyway, but I almost bet if you would have hit equals twice, your calculator would have done that extra step. Does that make any sense to you, what I'm saying? You put this stuff in, and then your calculator sort of left this part out because you just told it to do that when you hit the equals. So it didn't. It was trying to do PEMDAS, and you didn't give it a chance to finish out the whole PEMDAS. Is it coming out now? Oh, now you did it.
I didn't write this down.
Used the wrong points. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, what you do?
No, you're supposed to be finding the length of this side.
What did you say that? I'd be scared.
I just started working on autopilot because I'm like, oh, find the distance.
If, listen up here, if this side right here from here to there is 13.2, tell me some other segment we can find the length of in this picture.
That's in. Or in whatever you want to.
Without using the distance formula. From that being 13.2, tell me something else we can figure out.
The midpoint.
Say it again.
The midpoint.
Give me a segment. Go ahead, Brandon. SN.
13.22, I think. 22.
That one? Now, can we find that just from knowing this?
Yeah. Well,
Not unless they tell us what's true about this triangle.
Yeah,
If it's isosceles, then we could do that. So come up with something else. NP. How can you find the length of segment NP? It's got to be half of that 13.2. What is that?
6.6.
6.6. Give me another segment we can find the length of, just knowing this. TP. How long is segment TP? 6.6. Give me another segment that we can find the length of. Might be sitting here a while before somebody figures this out.
Oh yeah, ZN. Is it TQ? TS?
Stop. ST.
TZ.
Say it again.
Is it long?
QZ.
What is it?
QZ.
Now some of you got to remember, even though that segment's not drawn in there, could we draw it in there?
Yeah.
And what do we now know about it? It's half of that distance that we just found. So how long is it?
Wow, so you got me.
6.6. We know all three of those. Now, could we find the other ones that you guys were trying to do by using the distance formula again? Yeah. I didn't really want you to. I just wanted you to do that. Getting all that, Jonathan? I want you guessing. I want you getting it. That's why I might help to write something. No, just not right. Right, getting the answers would be good stuff.
I understand what we're doing.
All right, that's what I wanted to hear. So you know how to use the distance formula, you know how to use the midpoint formula. I can't ask for any more than that. Write this down. You can write it. If you wanted to use that as your notes, that piece of graph paper, you could just write it on there somewhere. If you want to get out another sheet of paper, whatever. I don't care how you do it. You can stick this piece of graph paper right in your notes if you want. So you got it there, showing you how to do some of this stuff. If you don't want to stick it in there, don't. But write this down. This needs to be in your notes for today.
So the pencil, like, sorry.
No, you gotta do the hand Nobody's gave everybody zeros.
That's why I was like, kind of looking at it, like, stuff like, what was the homework?
Does that make you happy, Taylor? Let's give you zeros. That's one of the things, Joe. Caleb, make sure you get the other stuff. You know, if you don't come and ask me for it, I'll come and hunt you down and make sure you get it, right? Not gonna happen. So mid-segment, those segments that we were drawing, we had a triangle, we found the midpoint here, found the midpoint here. Math people, very, very creative. Cameron knows this because his dad's a real creative person, right, Cameron?
Wait, you forgot
Is your dad
something.
is your dad the creative person in your family?
You forgot something.
I didn't forget nothing, Mackenzie. Quit telling me that, because every time you tell me that, it annoys me. So we got the mid-segment. That's a mid-segment right there. Mid-segment. That segment when you connect the midpoints. What we're going to learn today, there's going to be a theorem about that mid-segment. What do we already know? We've already learned it. So everything that we write down here is just going to be something you already know. What can you tell me about that segment and how it relates to that side? It's half of that side. What else is true?
Parallel.
They're parallel. That's what we're going to learn today. Mid-segment. Let's see. If I put the midpoint over here, what's formed in the middle here? Triangle. Anybody have a guess how creative the math person was that named that triangle?
Not very.
Not very.
Center triangle.
You're being more creative than most math people are.
Triangle.
Triangle in the middle.
Congruent triangle.
What? I'm trying not to.
Triangle.
Is
we say about
Mid-segment triangle.
Mid-triangle.
Seg triangle.
what forms that triangle?
Power. Mid-power.
The three mid segments. Guess what that triangle's called? Mid-segment triangle.
Wow.
He said that.
Yeah, I'm pretty
No,
sure.
that's Jacob did. That's why.
Okay.
That's why I
I
told
think
him.
I think like
No, that's why I looked at him and pointed at him and said, "Yeah." Write this down. Mid-segment of a triangle. Segment that connects the midpoints of two sides of a triangle. So each one of those red segments is a mid-segment. Every triangle has three mid-segments. Does that mean you have to draw all three mid-segments every time? No, sometimes you might only have one of the mid-segments drawn. I'm going to give you a second to write that down. Then we're going to put some markings on that picture, on that diagram. All right, Mackenzie, it's killing me. What did I mess up on?
Never told us the triangle on the graph. It goes scaling as fast as it goes lateral.
What? Figure out.
So that can be part of your homework, Mackenzie. You go home and you find the links to those other sides in that triangle, and you come back. Right for now, quit looking at the triangle. I wanted you to look at the triangle 5 minutes ago, and you didn't want to look at it then.
I was kind of reacting.
Madison,
Even now, since we started writing stuff, she don't
look,
write.
I looked in the mirror today, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm losing more hair. I wonder why.
Don't look at me.
Are you gonna get us paper like last time?
And I'll tell you here pretty soon. I'll say, go back to the back and copy some of these things. I do that sometimes. First year I have to teach a class. I have to go back for the prop stats class that I teach. I go back and do the homework and stuff. And in this class, I go back and do the homework just to make sure that I can explain it. That's Mr. A keeps on me about when he retires, he wants me to teach those classes, and I said, heck no, it's been too long since I've done.
Mr. A goes to every test by heart. It hasn't changed since the day he started.
He did change them a little bit here the last few years because people start cheating a lot, so he started changing them. On this, we're going to add some stuff to this. First of all, let's add some letters. I'm just going to letter this A, B, C, D, E, and F. So label it that way. If we label that, tell me two segments in this picture that we know are congruent. BD and what? F, B, D, FD. So these two are congruent? Yep, positive. No, they don't.
BF.
Let's go with BD now since we already got it marked. BD, give me another segment that it's congruent to.
F.
This is a mid-segment. We know that it's half as long as this whole bottom side down here. And that's a midpoint, so what has to be true about those two and that one? They all got to be congruent. Now, once you know that, pick me another segment.
BF.
Slow down. BF. Segment BF has to be congruent to what other two segments in this picture? DE and... Does everybody see that? This segment has to be congruent to this one and that one. Pick me another segment. Say it again, AB. It's congruent to FD, which is congruent to every single time. So if I drew this picture, and it's not the picture I wanted. Thinking about the wrong thing. Thinking about the quiz that we're going to take next time. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to tell you guys that. Forget that I said that. And what's on it, stuff about medians and all that stuff, and you have to do the definitions like we did the last time. If I connect those two, and I tell you that those are the midpoints of those two sides, and I tell you that this segment from here to there is 7, what can you tell me about this segment down here? Does that mean this one over here is 7? That one? Not necessarily. You guys are in a bad habit of saying, well, it looks like those two sides are the same. Not unless they tell you.
Well, it could be the
Yeah, that's why we don't say it. Why are you arguing the opposite way now? Before you were saying that the triangle looked the same. Now you're arguing the opposite thing. Write this down. This is the theorem that goes along with that. Write it down. What's this symbol mean again?
parallel.
Parallel. Good. Nobody holler at me. I'm putting my segment symbols in right now that I forgot to put in there. $1 million question after you get done writing this down.
How old are you?
What do you want?
I have no idea. Stop. None.
Sorry. Had to think. As I was trying to think, I got distracted. I had to stop and count to 10 so I could say something stupid. Don't laugh at me. George, are you writing all that?
That was so messed up.
That scared me.
I don't know that I've ever seen a whole class jump all at once. Because every single one of you jumped. And don't act like you didn't, Caleb.
You trying to kill some of us?
I know, like I can't, like.
It was this, every single one of you all at once.
I was writing and I thought he was about to, like, I was about to say something.
Then I got in trouble.
I told me back, I was like,
Dude, you're worse than Mrs. Whiteheart.
I know, George, I'm still giving you hell. Damn, once you held, I didn't get before that. Once you held. Where at? Don't worry about that. We'll get to it. Yeah, I know that's when I got distracted. So we know these two segments are parallel. We know these two are parallel. We know these two are parallel. I'm not going to run back through all that again. We marked some of this stuff on the other slide. Half of segment BC, so half the length from here to there is going to equal this segment. If it helps you, when I'm looking at this, when I'm looking at George's triangle here, and we're dealing with this segment going this way, turn your paper if it helps you to match them up. All right? So turn it like this or something so that you say, okay, yeah, that one. Most of you, if I put this in here, if I put 5 right here, most every one of you can find segment BC. How long is segment BC? 10. But if I do this and put 5 right here, a lot of people get confused. Turn your paper so you can see it looking like you want it to look. What segment has to be 10 if I put 5 right there? Segment AC. You guys are just saying that so you can prove me wrong, right? My $1 million question up there. The measure of angle PMB. Angle PMB. PMB. That's this whole angle right there. Plus, what other angle has to equal 180? Say it again. That's true. That's not the one I wanted, but that's true. So Cameron said, I should have thought this through before I wrote that question up here. Cameron said this angle right here. So those two angles add up to 180? Yeah, because together they make a straight angle or a straight line. Stupid thing. So this is Cameron's answer, and he's correct. But that's not the answer I wanted. Find me another angle. Say it again.
What did Kim say?
He said this angle up here. AMP. Think about what else we know. What do we know about this segment other than it's half of BC?
Parallel.
It's parallel. So what you might need to do, separate them off. Those are parallel lines. What's this side of the triangle coming down through here called again? Transversal. We're looking at that angle right there. What do we know about this angle and those two angles? They're supplementary. So name that bottom angle for me. MBN. Alright? What if I said this angle? What angle's supplementary to that angle? MPC. Alright? So that's all stuff that you know. What do we know about these three angles together? They add up to 180. Guess what's true about this angle right here and this angle right down here? They're congruent. If this one adds up to 180 with that, and this adds up to 180 with that, well then what's that make these two? They got to be congruent, right? What has to be true about this angle right there and this angle that I got the arrow pointing towards down here? They got to be congruent to each other. All kinds of stuff that you know if we know that those are mid-segments. That's your assignment. Not very hard. You got about 8 minutes. Open up your books, get out a piece of paper, get started on it. Just write it down. You got 8 minutes. Open up your books. Yeah, it's awesome. Open up your books, get started. I want everybody's book open. That includes Mackenzie.
Hey, everybody's gonna get one open.
I just wanted to make sure you felt included, Mackenzie. That's the only reason I said that.
Oh, thanks. I don't put too much.
Oh, Sierra, do you wish I'd leave her alone?
Yes.
Books out, start. You can get a whole bunch of this done. Lila just said she's got like half of it done already. She got an intervention yesterday. It's not a very difficult assignment. Get a whole bunch of it done now. You won't have to mess with it later. If you have questions, don't be afraid to ask. I'm looking at the book right now.
Yeah, number 3, like, what does that even mean? Like, just
Number 3. So they just want you to find the coordinates of points D, points E, and points F. Two different ways you could find the coordinates of points D, points E, and points F. You could use the midpoint formula, or you could just look at the graph, right? Either way, whichever one you do is fine with me. So you're just finding the coordinates of points D, points E, and points F on number 3.